Hello, this is Mrs. Huntley. This is lesson 1 out of your volume packet, and we're going to be learning about how to find the volume of a cylinder. So hopefully you're recognizing the word cylinder, and you recognize that it is a shape that has two bases, and they are both circles, a circle at the top and a circle at the bottom, and then it has space in between the two circles. So some common household things that are cylinders would be like a can of soup, a toilet paper roll, maybe a candle would be a cylinder. A crayon, kind of, if you cut off the sharp tip, would be a cylinder, but these would be some examples of different types of cylinders that you probably have around your house. So let's learn how to find the area of those cylinders. So please turn with me to page 3, which looks like this, and add the essential question at the top: how do you find the volume of a cylinder? So our directions say a cylindrical stack of coins is shown below. The dimensions of an individual coin are shown as well. If you need to find the amount of space taken up by this stack of coins, how could you use the dimensions of the individual coin to help? So hopefully you're remembering back to 7th grade when you found the area of prisms. And when you found the area of prisms, whether it's a rectangular prism or a cube or something like that, you found the area of the base and you multiplied it by the height. And you might be thinking, no, I didn't. I took the length times width times height. Well, length times width is the area. And then you multiplied it by the height, and that gave you the third dimension of the volume. So what we're going to do is find the area of the base, the area of one of the circles, and multiply it by the height of the stack. So let's write that down. First, we're going to find the area of one coin, or the area of the base of the circle, and then multiply it by the stack of coins. So hopefully you remember how to find the area of a circle. So the area of a circle, I'm just going to give you the formula here, area equals, we're going to use pi, so pi times the radius squared. Okay, so we have to figure out what the radius is again. Wait, the radius, I remember these words, I just don't remember what they are. The radius is the distance from the center of the circle to the edge. So if I had a little pin in the center here, it would be from the center to the edge of the circle. And I could go any edge because the center of a circle is equal distance from all the edges. But I don't have the radius given here. I have the diameter of the circle given here. The diameter, wait, that's another word. I remember what it is, but what? The diameter is the distance all the way across the circle going through the center of the circle. So the diameter is the radius times 2. Or if I take the diameter and I divide it by 2, I'm going to get a radius. So in this instance, my radius is going to be 2 because half of 4 is 2. So my area of the circle is pi times 2 squared. Now we're going to use the pi button on our calculator. So let me show you that really quick. Let me flip to the overhead here. The pi button is located right here. It has pi on it. So instead of using 3.14, which is what the directions in our packet say, we're going to use the pi button. If we've got a pi button, we might as well use it. So I'm going to turn my calculator on, clear it, and I said pi 2 squared because the radius I said was 2. So enter that, and I get 12.56637, etc. We're going to round that to 2 decimal places, or to the hundredths place. So since it's 12.566, I'm going to round to 12.57. So the area of the base is 12.57. Now let's see what the height is. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 coins, and they're each 1 centimeter. So I'm the height here is going to be times 10. So 12.57 times 10, I'm going to move that decimal 1 to the right. So the volume of this stack of coins is going to be 125.7 centimeters cubed. That's the other thing. When we're talking about volume, we're talking in cubic units. So whatever the units are, we're going to cube them. When we were talking about area, it was normally squared. Okay, so that when we're talking about area, something squared. When we're talking about volume, it's 3 dimensions, so it's cubed. Okay, let's take a look at the fill in the blank notes and then we'll do more examples and this will become much more clear. So volume is the amount of 3-dimensional space that's occupied by an object. Oh, come on. 3-dimensional space that is occupied by an object. Volume can also be referred to as the capacity. Okay, so how much can fit inside, that's the capacity of a cylinder. How much space the cylinder takes up is both interchangeable for volume. To find the volume of a cylinder, multiply the area. Oops, that's not what I wanted. Multiply the area, we'll just fill in the blanks here, of the base by the height of the cylinder. Formula can be written as V equals capital BH. Okay, the capital B is the area. So describe each variable. V is the volume of the cylinder. The capital B is the area of the base, which we said in this instance is going to be pi r squared. And height, or H, is the height or the distance between the bases. The base of the cylinder will always be a circle. So to find the area of the base, use the formula. I don't know what that 3 is doing there, so let me see if I can get rid of it. Cool things. Okay, there we go. Use the formula pi r squared. So we could say, instead of saying this as our formula, we could say volume equals pi r squared times height. That's how I would like you to think of it instead of what they have there. So find the volume of each cylinder. Don't use 3.14, use the pi button. Okay, so our formula, volume equals pi times the radius squared times the height. Let's plug in the values. Let's see, this is the radius. It's starting in the center and going to one edge. So volume equals pi, we're going to hit that pi button, times the radius, 6 squared, times the height. I'm going to put that in parentheses, and the height is 4. So I'm going to grab my calculator really quick. You should be grabbing yours as well. Don't just copy from me. Use the pi button, 6 squared, which is 36, times 4. I get 452.389. So 452.389. Now since this is a 9 and I want to round to the nearest hundredths, I'm going to bump that up to 10. So it's going to be about, I'm sorry, not to 10, to 9. 452.39, and these are inches, inches cubed. Okay? If at any point something is confusing you, please write your note, or write your question, I should say, on a sticky note and make sure you're bringing it to class for me so that I can be answering it. So number 2, the volume, the formula. We're going to use the same formula. Volume equals pi r squared times the height. Now they're not giving us a radius here. They're giving us the diameter. So the radius is going to be half the diameter, which is going to be 4 centimeters. So what I'd like you to do right now is pause the video, plug in the values in the right place, use your calculator, and figure out the volume to the nearest hundredth. Volume equals pi. The radius is 4 squared. The height is 10. So I got 502.65 centimeters cubed. Go ahead and do number 3. Pause the video, fill in all of the missing answers, and then unpause the video. Okay, for number 3, volume equals pi r squared times height. Plugging in our values, again, I have to cut this in half because they're showing me a diameter, and half of that would be 5. So I take pi times 5 squared times 2.5, and I get approximately 196.35 feet squared. I'm sorry, feet cubed, okay, or cubic feet. Let's go on to the next page. We got a couple of more notes to take and then a couple of more examples to do together. On the next page, it says to leave an answer in terms of pi means to multiply everything except for pi and simplify by leaving the pi symbol in your solution. What? We're going to use the same formula. So volume equals pi r squared times height. And if we're going to leave it in terms of pi, we're going to plug in our values. So I'll have volume equals pi. Instead of r, I'm going to say 10 squared times the height, which is 15.2 millimeters. If I'm leaving that in terms of pi, the only thing that I'm going to multiply together is 10 squared and 15 times 2. So 10 squared times 15.2. If I could type it in right, that would help. 15.2. I get 1,520. So if I'm leaving it in terms of pi, I'm going to say 1,520 pi millimeters cubed. That's if you're leaving something in terms of pi. Now if I'm multiplying it out, I'm going to take that 1,520 times pi, so use your pi button again, and I get 4,775.220. So I'm going to round that to 4,775.22 millimeters. Oh, I'm sorry. They said leave it to the nearest tenth. I've been going to the hundredth. I guess I should read the directions before I start teaching, huh? Okay, so we'll just leave it at 0.2. Okay, so the next one, be careful because they're giving you a diameter again. We're going to use the same formula. So we're going to do our volume equals pi r squared times height. Volume, oh come on now. Volume equals pi. Go ahead and write your answer in terms of pi and then to the nearest tenth as well. Pause the video, figure out your answers, and then come back and check. Okay, so check your work on number 5. If I'm leaving it in terms of pi, you just take your 8 squared, 64 times 7, that's 448 pi inches cubed. If I'm multiplying that answer, 448 times pi, I get 1,407.4 inches cubed. I should say approximately because this is always an approximation because pi, again, is an irrational number and we don't know exactly how large pi is. Go ahead and do number 6. Pause the video, do number 6, and then come back to check your work. Okay, so for number 6, plugging in we've got a radius here, so I plugged that 1.5 squared into my formula times 4. 1.5 squared times 4 is 9. So if I'm leaving it in terms of pi, it'd be 9 pi yards cubed, or 9 pi cubic yards. If I multiply it out to the nearest tenth, it'd be approximately 28.3 cubic yards. Okay, so use what you've learned about the volume of cylinders to answer each question below. The area of the base of a cylinder is 150 square inches. If the volume of the cylinder is 1,050 inches cubed, what is the height of the cylinder? So what I'm going to suggest is that you use the formula that we've been using and plug in what you know, solve for what you don't know. So volume, oh come on pen, volume equals pi r squared times the height. Now pi r squared, that's our base, remember? That's how we found our base. So if they're telling us the base of the cylinder is 150 square inches, I'm going to use that in place of both the pi and the r. So volume equals 150. We don't know the height, right? Oh wait, we know the volume. Blah, I'm messing up. Try again. Oh, come on. There we go. The volume of the cylinder is 1,050. So instead of the V, I'm going to say 1,050 equals, instead of the base, I'm going to say 150 times the height. If I want the height, the h all by itself, what am I going to do? Divide both sides by 150. So 1,050 divided by 150, h equals 7 inches. Now this is not going to be cubic inches here. This is a linear relation, or a linear measurement. It's just the height. Okay. So the next one, the volume of a cylinder is 942 cubic feet. If the height of the cylinder is 12 feet, what is the radius of the cylinder? So again, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to use our trusty formula. Volume equals pi r squared times the height. Plug in what we know. We know the volume, 942. I'm going to leave pi. We don't know the radius, but we know the height is 12 feet. So if I want pi r squared all by itself, I'm going to divide both sides by 12. 942 divided by 12 is going to be 78.5. Again, use your calculator. Equals pi r squared. If I want the radius all by itself, now I'm going to divide by pi. Divide by pi. I've got to grab my calculator and do this because I think when I did it before I was using an approximation of pi. So 78.5 divided by the pi key, I get 24.987. So let's see, does it tell us what to round to? Let's go ahead and round to the nearest hundredth. So I'm going to say r squared equals 24.99. Now, if I'm trying to get r, not r squared, what do? Take the square root of both sides. So r squared, 24.987. I'm going to take this, use my second key, square root, 24.99, and I get 4.998999. I'm going to round that up to 5. So my radius here is 5 feet. Okay. Why don't we, I'm looking at the time, it's 1922. What I'm going to do is leave the last two. If you want to try to work through them on your own, by all means do that. We will work through them together tomorrow in class. So how do I summarize today's lesson? To find the volume of a cube, you take the area of the base and multiply it by the height. To find the area of the base, use pi r squared. To find the volume of the cylinder, use pi r squared times the height. Have a good night, and I will see you tomorrow.